So in our last section of notes, we started talking about what is biology. And we learned that biology is the study of life, and that the smallest unit of life is a cell. So one single little cell is considered to be living. But that cell had to be made up of molecules. So in order to understand what living things are made up of, we have to understand the smaller bits and pieces, the building blocks that make up the cell. And so you've learned before in your previous science classes that cells are made of other organelles, or tiny organs like the mitochondria and chloroplast, the nucleus. But cells are really even smaller than that. And they're actually all living things, or every living thing and non-living thing, is made up of matter. And matter is going to be made up of atoms. So anything, all the stuff around us, from the air that we're breathing in to the table that's beside us, is going to be made up of atoms. They're all types of matter, and they're all made up of atoms. So a single itty-bitty little cell that might be the size of the tip of my pen here is actually going to be made up of atoms as well. All these different atoms, like the water molecule that I drew for you yesterday, H2O, is made up of three atom molecules. Made up of three atoms to make up one water molecule. And all of these atoms are going to be held together by bonds, and that's what these lines are representing. Today, what we want to talk about is more about atoms. So this is notes 1.1b, and we're going to be on page 7 today of our notes. So matter, all the stuff in the universe, is arranged in repeating units that give each set of matter unique characteristics. All matter, all stuff, all things, is composed of atoms of elements. So more important elements to life include carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The other important elements are abbreviated as CHNOPS. So all living things actually have these 6 elements in them. CHNOPS. C stands for carbon, H for hydrogen, N for nitrogen, O for oxygen, P for phosphorus, and S for sulfur. A couple little things here. When we're first looking at this picture, this is actually going from smallest all the way around to largest. Smallest, I forgot my T there, to largest. Notice you have your atoms first. The atoms could be something like hydrogen and oxygen. Then from there you can have a molecule. An example of a molecule could be water, H2O. And then a bunch of molecules can form to make a cell, and then tissues, then organs. But all cells are going to contain these 6 essential elements. And what we're going to do right beside CHNOPS right here, I want you to write essential. Elements. Essential elements. So CHNOPS is our way to abbreviate the 6 essential elements, the elements that are necessary for life. Now these elements are going to bond together by sharing electrons to form molecules. So H's, a hydrogen and 2 oxygens can bond together to form a molecule like water. Molecules can be grouped as organic, containing CHO, or inorganic, not containing CH and O. The most important inorganic molecule is water. So let's also underline that water is inorganic. for something to be organic, and let's circle this word, it's going to contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So water is written as H2O. It doesn't have carbon there. It only has hydrogens, 2 hydrogens, and 1 oxygen. And it does not have that carbon to make it organic. So all life is carbon-based, and there are 4 important organic macromolecules needed to build cells. And that's what we're going to really focus on in this unit. This unit, we're going to focus on our 4 organic macromolecules. But for right now, it's really important for us to understand that first you start with atoms. Atoms make up matter, such as different molecules. Those different molecules, the bonded together atoms, will actually make cells. So you have atoms form molecules that are going to form cells that can become tissues and organs, and then in that picture, organ systems and organisms, and then populations and communities, and so on and so on. But this is the first part that we really need to understand here. Molecule or atoms are going to bond together to form molecules that form cells, and cells are the first kind of stage or smallest unit of life there, and this is life. Okay, there is going to be one more thing on the next page that I want us to go ahead and look at now before we stop for today's notes. Today's notes is going to be very short. But the next thing that we need to know, or need to look at, are these macromolecules. We're going to be studying macromolecules. Macro is simply going to mean big. Just like if you say something.
All football players report to Friday morning meeting in room 212. All football players report to Friday morning meeting in room 212.
Just like when we say something is microscopic, micro meaning it's very, very small, well, macromolecules are going to be bigger molecules, made of lots of molecules. Another word for them is going to be polymers. And these are 2 vocabulary words that you're going to have to understand. Poly means what? If you say a polygon, it has many sides or many angles. Okay? A polymer is going to be made of many smaller units. So are made of small repeating units called monomers. And this is another vocabulary word you'll need to know. So macromolecule and polymer mean the same thing. Monomer and subunit are going to mean the same thing, a small part. So a bunch of monomers is going to make a polymer. An example here, a monomer might be 1 Lego, whereas your polymer could be your, I don't know, Lego castle. Okay? 1 monomer is going to be 1 itty bitty little Lego. A polymer will be your whole Lego castle or Lego boat or plane. Okay? And your body is going to need these molecules to perform functions. So the macromolecules that we're going to talk about, there's going to be 4 that we talk about. They're going to be your source. Your source of these macromolecules is going to be found in your food.
All football players are reminded of Friday morning meeting in room 212. All football players, current, future football players, report to Friday morning meeting room 212.
Indicator tests to see if these macromolecules are found in a sample. So the 4 macromolecules that we're going to talk about, and you can write this on the top or the side, are going to be carbs, like carbohydrates, lipids, which are also known as fats, nucleic acids, like your DNA, and proteins, like the protein that you can find in chicken. These are the 4 macromolecules that are essential to all living things, and we'll talk about those in the next few days. But that's really all for our notes today. The last thing that I want you to do before you end your notes is to actually go back to the previous page, to the summary box right here. I want you to take a minute and write 3 sentences that summarize the section. So pick out 3 important points of this unit and write it down in this summary box. It's really important for you to always take a minute to look back at your notes, to review your notes, and it could even be our notes on the scientific method. Review your notes so that way you can really understand it, and this really will help you understand the overall unit before we come back to class and talk about it. Okay, and that's going to be all for today's notes.